Well, I'm Joe Clifford, and I am a husband of 26 years to Jennifer, and a father to John and Kate. John is 18, Kate's 16. I'm sinfully proud to be their dad. I didn't grow up that active in church. My mom and I did go to church from time to time. My father was a lapsed Catholic and not really interested in institutional religion. I was baptized in the Methodist Church, and we were more than Christmas and Easter Christians, but we didn't go that often. I see my mom and me in church all the time, the mother and son who you recognize them and you've seen them before, but you don't know their names, and they just come to worship, but they haven't gotten involved in anything else, and that was us. When I went to college, I had a couple of experiences of God that were quite profound. Probably the most powerful was connected to, of all things, a philosophy class with an atheist for professor. But I couldn't find a Christian community in Auburn to nurture those sparks into a meaningful faith. I met Jennifer at Auburn, and about a year and a half out of Auburn, we were engaged. And Jennifer grew up very active at Myers Presbyterian Church in the Atlanta area. Her parents were elders, and so I knew that church would be part of our life together. I had no idea it would be this much a part of life, and I knew I needed to get up to speed. So I started going to a Bible study at my roommate's church, which was Westminster Presbyterian in Nashville, and the Reverend Casey Tomey led that Bible study, and I absolutely loved that study. I found myself coming back from vacation to make it. It was 7 a.m. on Friday mornings, and I just couldn't wait to get there. And I'd been married for about 6 months and part of that Bible study for a couple of years, and Casey asked me to go to lunch. And he asked me there if I'd ever thought about ministry. And my response was, "You didn't know me in college, Casey, you've got the wrong guy." And I asked him, why would you ask me that? And he said, "Well, part of this is nobody's ever told you what these stories mean, and you don't come at this from an ivory tower. You're kind of the average Joe, and not a person who's been steeped in the life of the church. But the other thing is you think theologically," and I didn't know what that meant. He said, "The questions that you ask in Bible study, the comments that you make, you see the world through a theological lens." And he invited me to consider whether or not I was using that gift as a banker. I had never thought about my life in terms of gifts or vocation, calling in that way. And that began a process of about 4 years where we really wrestled with call. And at the end of that, after changing churches, visiting 3 seminaries, thinking a great deal about that possibility, the final straw was for Jennifer. She said to me, "You know, I'm not sure this is my first choice for your career, and if you're going to go to school for 3 years, you could be a lawyer." But she said, I love you, and if this is what you're called to do, I'll support you in it." And she said, "And I do believe you're called to it." And that for me was my final confirmation. July of 1994, we sold the house and cashed in the 401k and started Greek school at Columbia Seminary. And the rest is history. It's been an incredible journey. Well, I think ministry overall gives you a unique opportunity to experience the whole spectrum of life, just about every week, from birth to death to marriage to divorce to everything in between. Experiencing life that intimately with so many people is an incredible privilege. So that's probably the most fulfilling aspect of ministry for me. I love the process of putting a sermon together and delivering it. There's a magic when the Spirit is a part of that. There are those moments in a sermon that there's a holy silence in the church, and you just feel the power of that moment, and God has a word to offer us, and it's wonderful to be a part of that. So I love preaching. I also love teaching. I'm the son of 2 teachers, and so it's in my blood. I remember as a layperson and as a student the excitement of new insights and hearing things and thinking about things in new ways, thinking about the gospel for the first time in new categories. And as a teacher, I love seeing those insights come across the faces of people in a class. When Jamie contacted me for the first time last fall and asked if I would be part of the process of the PNC, my immediate reaction was I wasn't sure that I was called to a church like Myers Park. I'm an urban pastor. The congregation I serve has a vibrant homeless ministry, and Myers Park is in a wealthy community, and what did I have to offer as a pastor to a church like that? But I was honored to be asked, and a church like Myers Park, if you're invited into the process, that's an incredible honor. So I said I'll be happy to participate in it. As we moved forward, we had a phone interview in February of this past year. That phone interview was amazing. For a first conversation, we talked about some serious stuff. And what came out was that the search committee, they talked about the vision to get more engaged in the issues affecting Charlotte, to take those relationships that the church has built over time with the Greer Heights community and with other communities, and to develop those relationships to try to increase the diversity of the congregation, and to get more intentional about engaging the challenges that the Charlotte community faces, and that's why they were talking to me. I couldn't believe that we were talking about that in a first interview on the phone. Our first face-to-face meeting the next month here in Dallas, and they allotted 4 hours for the conversation, and I thought, what are we going to talk about for 4 hours? And when we had run 15 minutes over, Jamie had to get us to stop, and I could have been in that conversation all night. It was so exciting. We talked about everything from personal experiences of Christ in our lives to the issues in public education in Charlotte. It was an incredibly energizing conversation. And after that, I felt like something special was happening. When I thought about the possibility of being in ministry with such a group and the considerable resources of Myers Park community, combined with that desire to be more intentional about engaging the community, taking that individual discipleship that's been so well developed under Steve's leadership with Every Member Has a Ministry, and then imagining what can we accomplish together, because the mission of the body of Christ is ultimately a lot more than the sum of its parts, and there's something that together as a community of faith can be accomplished in Charlotte, and I am thrilled to be a part of that process and seeing what God has in store for this community.